Man, I'm still kind of just beside myself with what happened. I'm sure everyone knows about thumbnails up, the whole Jason Paige, Rock Sandy discussion that occurred. It was a great live. It was actually very fun. It was a very grand old time in my personal opinion. I'm just going to discuss it. Rock Sandy already gave me permission to discuss it, so never you worry, never you fret. I'm going to have a link to the actual video in the description below. I'm not really going to show you the video. I'm just going to describe how it was through my point of view. I'm going to give you a opossum critique point of view of the entire thing. Before I go crazy hard into it, before I start like dissecting stuff, I'll go ahead and give a couple positives. Jason was very nice. He didn't speak over Rock or anything like that. Both people talked. They were allowed to have conversations with each other. Nobody overspoke or overextended anything. Jason Paige did donate $50 in a super chat at the very end of the live, which is the equivalent of one free signature. To this day, I still don't know what actually makes it so where some people get free ones, some people have to pay for them. Some of them don't end up on his actual eBay store. Some of them don't end up it's kind of weird because some people are saying, "Oh, he signed stuff for me for free." And it's like, well, cool. He definitely charges other people for stuff, but I guess for some people, he did do that. I'm not gonna go crazy into that whole thing. We'll go to that, but there was a few positives to that. He was there. It was a thing, and it happened. There you go. There's a couple positives that occurred right there. Now let's go into this whole thing. So this entire conversation played exactly as I thought it would play out. People always wonder why I didn't do an interview or why I didn't discuss anything with him. People call me pussy. People call me a bitch. I don't really care what anybody has to say. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I don't really care that much, and nothing really matters to me about the whole thing because my entire point about the whole Jason Paige saga is the man is cringe. That's my whole thing regarding any of that stuff. A bunch of other things got brought up about threats of violence or insider hate or anything like that. It's like, bro, my videos are calling you cringe. I did say something about you doing the whole crypto thing, and I still stand on that possibly being a really weird scenario to be promoting to people, especially when they should be doing their own research on crypto, but I mean, you're promoting it. So they kind of trust that you're putting your back in this, but you should still research it and all that stuff, even though I'm saying that it's okay and you should check it out, blah, 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 whatever. That whole thing happened, but ultimately my whole stance on Jason Paige is the man is very cringe. A lot of his stances and a lot of the things he does are very cringe, and nothing really changed about that night. In fact, the entire conversation played out almost exactly as predicted, and there was nothing really that shook me or anything like that. He did have a couple strange takes. We'll get to that for so. One of the things that got brought up was him actually taking people's content, throwing it up, doing that whole thing, and basically going through that. His basic excuse for that was it's been freebooted 4, 5, 6 different times, and it's very difficult to actually find the original creator for that stuff. Instead of him creating his own original content or giving takes on other people's content or reacting to anything that's Pokemon related or doing anything, he just takes stuff, throws on his page with the help of his team. Some people give him permission, some people do not. He tries to find credit for things, and the thing is it goes through 4 or 5 different reposts, and then he throws up. Cool, what great excuse, I suppose, whatever. Doesn't really excuse anything, and the whole thing still happens, but sure, whatever, do your thing. I always do find it funny that Jason Paige talks about how he of all people understands not getting credit for the work he's done in Pokemon, how he really should be known more for his contribution to the initial rise and the current rise of Pokemon for its popularity. And to an extent, I can kind of agree because I do understand that people look really nostalgically at the original theme song. People look very nostalgically at the original anime, and people look back very fondly on that. So I get where that's coming from. To the point where I also don't understand, because you feel that way. You understand how it feels to get undercut about certain things. You don't understand how a smaller creator would feel undercut from a big page with 400,000 stupid followers or something is gonna take something, throw it up, and not even credit the person that did it because they couldn't be bothered to find it. You don't understand how somebody would feel upset about that. It's just something, well, it just slips through the cracks. I try to find stuff. There's a reason why people aren't very happy with that. I don't necessarily agree with some of the people saying some of the fuck shit they said towards it, where it's oh, cancel this man, completely deplatformed. No, I don't think you should be deplatformed for doing a goofball thing like that. It definitely warrants criticism, though, and it definitely warrants people throwing shade. So I didn't really like that whole argument. He added nothing to it. He was talking copyright and patents to content creators for people who already 100% understand it and have to follow it every single time they upload and go through fair use every single time they upload. At least they're supposed to anyway. So nothing new was added there. They talked specifically about his signatures. This is where really I lost complete track and a little bit of respect for the man, actually, because it's very much rules for thee, but not for me. Let me explain. So Jason Paige, he sells signatures at cons. He also has an eBay store and a personal store of his own that he puts stuff up that he signs, whether it be Funko Pops, whether it be slabs, whether it be his own card of him on it, his gold card, his serialized card, any of the collector's items things. He signs VHS, he signs all kinds of stuff, and he throws up on his store, right? Sure, whatever. I think the prices he asks for are ridiculously high considering who he is in the ecosystem. He said ecosystem a lot in there. In the ecosystem of celebrities, I definitely think Jason Paige would be kind of like a lower tier celebrity. I feel like you asking like the same amount for like actual real big celebrities is kind of crazy. Let me put it in a way that like maybe some people can understand. Like me getting the same respect as PokeRev. Let me put it in that perspective. Like, sure, am I a creator that does cool things here? Yeah, sure, sometimes. But PokeRev does things that are way cooler every single fucking day. And I just happen to like be here and talk some shit every now and again, right? It's the same type thing. The whole thing. Sir, he can charge whatever he wants, though. That's not the whole fucking point. He can do whatever the hell he wants. He can charge whatever the hell he wants. Sure, whatever. People are allowed to call it cringe. People are allowed to call it fucking goofy because it is, depending on how much he's wanting for what it is and how much his signature adds value to it. Some of those slabs are ridiculous. Two big topics came out of this that I really did not agree with. Number one, he was saying that everyone else at the conventions and stuff like that do this exact same thing. Like he mentioned Veronica Taylor for one, and then he mentioned Mitsuhiro Arita one time as well. And everyone in the chat, myself included, had the exact same response to that thing. I think him comparing himself to Veronica Taylor is a little bit of a stretch anyway. I genuinely do. I think that's a little bit like, you're really like, you're on that level? Yeah, I guess you're kind of in that realm, but that's a stretch. Bro, you are not Mitsuhiro Arita. I don't care what anyone has to say. I don't care what any of your fanboys in here. They can leave whatever comment thread they want. I'm going to be real with you. This is just me being honest and truthful with you and not sucking your dick like some of your fucking yes men are saying to you. You are not on that level. I'm very sorry, and the overall community, that is their consensus with you. It would do you a lot of good to get that in your head and to humble yourself a little bit. Just humble yourself just a little bit in that regard, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is when we were talking about the whole signature thing, like Rock brought it up. He brought it up very well about how people kind of have issues with like the signatures and the prices and things like that and where the hang up is, right? Essentially, Jason Paige said, hey, I don't charge for photos or anything like that, which cool. That's awesome, right? But some people here do, and I don't necessarily agree. That's what Jason Paige said. Some people do, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I get hung up a little bit on that. And that completely made me lose any kind of, like, interest in hearing what he has to say. Because, like, motherfucker will sell signatures. It's okay for him to make the bag. It's okay for him to sell because the market value and the things that the secondhand market thinks about his signature and what it sells for. And someone coming in and buying 100 of them just to resell. So Jason Paige is going to capitalize on his own secondhand market because whatever, cool, sure. You can't understand somebody charging for a fucking photo, an actual photo where someone's like, they can't even resell that. They can't even do anything with it. They just want to pay money to that person to get a photo with them because they genuinely want to meet them. They don't even want anything else from it. They're willing to pay that money just for the experience of meeting that person. However you feel about them charging for that fucking photo, that's up to you. But the fact that he can't wrap his head around it, but he can totally get on board with charging for signatures and charging a buttload for his fucking stuff on eBay, that's just absurd. That's delusional. You, of all people, should be advocating for those guys selling their photo, my guy. It's the same thing. It's literally the exact same thing, only you can't resell the photo, and it's very personalized because you met the person and you were in the photo. It's a very personal thing. I'm very glad you don't charge for that. I'm glad you give some fans some hookups, but you don't really give some to others per his own conversations on there. You do you. It's fine. Feel free to. I completely lost respect and complete regard for that because it was like, okay, so other people can't do it, but you can do it. If you have issues with it, you completely understand our argument with like the signature because you can understand it for pictures, but it's completely different when you do it. It's totally different whenever it's coming from the mind of Jason Paige, the twisted mind of JP. It's a completely fucking different thing. I don't care. It's some lame goober shit. I'm not gonna lie. I lost respect on that regard. I know you don't care. I really know you don't, but I lost it. I was just like, yeah, fuck it. This ain't going nowhere. Overall, I just think he should really be thanking the lucky stars that Pokemon's not like shutting down any of his operations or him singing anything at like any of his conventions or anything like that. He's completely allowed to sing that, but he has no rights and he has no royalties royalties to any of that. So he confirmed that himself on that stuff. He basically took one lump sum payment for the actual stuff instead of getting royalties. I don't know if Pokemon ever offered them to him. And to a degree, I do understand getting screwed in the long term where Pokemon really took off. I understand the saltiness about that, but that dude uses that song an awful lot in a lot of stuff. He promotes himself an awful lot with that song. And for somebody who is really profiting off the backs of Pokemon and using that to propel themselves forward, even though that's your argument for other people using you and all this shit for your resale, I really think you should be like kind of shutting the fuck up and just thanking your lucky stars that you're allowed to do this. Like, who cares if you have a couple haters? Who cares if, like me, of all people, which, by the way, I don't hate you by any stretch of the imagination. I think you're cringe. I think the things you do is cringe. People say I'm cringe all the time. Whenever I made a joke, which it got brought up a couple times, about the crackhead thing, I get that exact same criticism. You want to know why I made that joke? You want to know where that joke actually came from? I'll spell it out for you. By doing this stuff. By being like this all the fucking time. That's what it is. That's what it is. I get that same criticism because I move around a lot. And you bebop around a hell of a lot whenever it comes to you doing this. I get the exact same criticism. I get it. Go look at that video where I'm talking about that kid and dad that was like stealing cards from that guy. There are so many comments on that video talking about, am I on drugs? Do I got to pee? Do I got ADHD? Do I got all this shit? I get that exact same criticism, my guy. It's not because people think you're an actual druggie or anything like that. It's because you'll be sitting there like normal. You'd be like this. And then all of a sudden you're doing this. You're like, making trees with the Paige. Like, you're doing that shit, okay? That's where that's coming from. Here's a video. Here's a good example of why people like kind of thought that about you and why it was a very fitting joke. A joke to make about you. Here, watch this.
There's nothing more unifying than Pokemon that I've ever experienced, besides Burning Man. But that's a whole different thing. But
that's another vlog.
It's a whole another thing, another day. But there's nothing more unifying than Pokemon that I've ever experienced, besides Burning Man. But that's a whole different thing. But
honestly, I'm surprised they. Goodbye, PSA 10 quality up there.
No, that's right.
Gotta be careful with them. But I
won't
think
scratch your band, cause the cases will defend. Not if you break the cards before you actually get them out.
But hey.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, that sums it up pretty well, right? Now is pre me making any videos about you. In fact, before I made any videos, people brought stuff to me about your signature prices. People talked about how cringe you were to me before I was tracking anything you did. This has been an ongoing opinion for the homie for a little bit, and I find it very hard to believe for as long as you've been in the content creation space, this is your first dose of criticism. If it's for me, I'm completely honored, and by all means, Jason Paige, I don't dislike you. It's none of that crazy stuff, man. Just, I really think like a little bit of a humble pie slice could really help you out a little bit. I'm just a regular dude, clocks into work every fucking day. I do this for a hobby. I do this for fun. I like making content. I like talking my stuff. And I don't got a fucking thing to prove to anybody about that stuff. So say what you will about me. You're 100% welcome to your opinion about that. I don't fucking care. Say what you will. Have your fun. Roxanne did a fantastic job. He did a great job with that interview. Absolute W for Roxanne. No matter how you slice any of the other bullshit, this was 100% a W for Rock. Like, easily. He fucking made it look too easy to just make a grown man stumble over himself about his own business shit and what he sells. It was a great video, Rock. You did a great job. Link is in the description down below. I don't want to show any of it. You should definitely check out his video. I just wanted to give a little recap of the whole thing, and it played out exactly as I thought it would. That's all I got, Virgin Gang. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Whew. Man, wrapping up 2024 strong, aren't we? Yeah, we sure fucking